ones that said 300 admin review code of conduct. Is that
I'm
correct?
recording.
That's the one I was working off of.
Okay. All right.
Admin
So
review.
welcome to our policy committee meeting. It's June 22nd. All board members are here. We have Frank. And our goal today is to really get through the code of conduct because we'll need that for our July 6th meeting. Do we need the 0100 for the July 6th meeting?
Which was 0100? Sorry.
Equal opportunity and non-discrimination. Same situation.
Same thing. I don't think it's needed like right away.
Okay.
That's one that we have already. So we already have the policy.
Perfect.
It's just one that would have to be reviewed.
All right, so we'll start with code of conduct, make sure we get that done, and then we'll move through the agenda after that. So you guys will see, I just went through and did a search and replace for parent guardian. Although then after I did all that, I saw parent was defined as parent guardian. But I left it anyway. Because, you know, I did it. It's fine. RG added a good or other protected class. If we're scrolling through like people's comments.
I think
If you like the comments, can we just click on the check mark so then it adds to it?
Yeah, I like adding or any other protected class. You okay with that, Tim?
Sure.
it just saves us having to update these if a new class is added.
Okay, I hit the check mark. Cool.
Seen this term before, children of pupils.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what, it probably doesn't really matter, but are we transporting children of pupils?
I don't know that we have any right
Under
now.
the definition of school bus
Towards the
on
bottom.
page
Thank you.
2?
We could.
You'll see my comment, yeah, I guess. School bus means every motor vehicle owned by a public or governmental agency or private school and operated for the transportation of pupils, children of pupils, teachers, and other persons.
That doesn't make sense, does it?
Not
No.
really. I mean, I guess you technically.
We could, right? We could have students who have children.
That is true.
But that still makes them pupils, right?
I mean,
Children of pupils.
we
Are they
could
coming
be
to school?
providing childcare at some point. I don't think it's an issue right now, but it could be.
I didn't care either way. I just flagged it because it seemed odd to me.
I'm guessing it ties back to a legal requirement
It's
to
gotta be.
transport children of a student,
Should we just
or a
leave it?
child of a student.
My recommendation, if NISBA has it in there,
Just leave it.
there's gotta be a reason that Jay put it in there.
Well, there's some districts, it's probably.
Yeah, there's gotta be a
Very
reason
common.
that, you know, he put it
Not
in there.
ours, yeah.
Okay, I'll just, hold on. All right, let's scroll to the next. I think the orange was because of DAC or something, right?
Yeah, I thought I took that out.
I'm just gonna make a change just to clean up a blue line.
Someone had made a comment about perhaps replacing the word kung fu with something else.
Yes.
I don't know if throwing is what we want.
It's,
We probably don't need to.
honestly, you don't
It's-
need
it's-
it.
Yeah, I mean, we can change it to throwing star.
Okay.
It is.
It's an example.
It lives in the penal law
Oh, really?
in that.
Really?
Yeah.
What term? Kung Fu?
Kung Fu star, yeah,
Really? Wow.
yeah. At least it did 20 years ago when I was a
That's funny.
prosecutor. Maybe it's been updated since, but,
All I can think of is a song.
And RG has the
Or,
other protected
What
class
was,
here, which.
big spots?
yeah.
And Frank, these will have to be cleaned up.
Yeah, I'm guessing
The
we're doing
formatting
it.
Just
is
to be able
all
to
over
do
the
that.
place, yeah.
You don't want me touching it. I'm
And
the
then
worst
even
when
like,
it moves.
all right, I see where RG's clicking down now, but see how number 5 and then we get to B, but there's. like,
Yeah.
creating, oh, I guess that just goes with what's above it. Okay, never mind. It's a little clunky. All right, so now we're down to, it's highlighted in number 6, follow directions given by teachers, administrators, and other school personnel in a respectful, positive manner.
Yeah, we,
I think we updated that.
yeah, I think that's
Okay.
good files there.
So do you want me to just click on?
I
Yeah,
click
okay,
on
you
it,
did,
so.
okay.
You want to be the clicker?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Whoever
see, like
gets there.
8 is all weird. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a lot of
Formatting
formatting
needs
issue.
to be cleaned up,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
just can get, I'm the worst when it comes to that.
I'm just gonna make a note.
Okay, I added including only parking in authorized spaces because I have observed some of our students parking in the like, they have the lines drawn through them, like
Mhm.
shaded spots at the end.
Yeah. I agree.
And
It's a hard thing to enforce,
got it.
but I would rather I agree with you having it in there.
If it's not in there, it makes it harder to
Mhm.
address.
Correct.
So I
Yeah.
would put it in there.
And when we ask parents to park on the lawn, that's authorized, right? Like for field trips?
Oh, I would think so.
So that wouldn't make it be.
I was here over the weekend and I drove by and poor Neil texted me and we talked. I think he was gonna have a heart attack because
Oh,
it
it
was
was bad.
bad.
There was a car that was like almost in the road.
There were people parked everywhere. So I think when people are renting our facility, we might have to also
Oh.
explain to them that they need to respect our facility and our grass and because it was
Where do they park if there's no parking?
everywhere,
No,
literally.
but I mean, like, where do we want them to park?
There was a car parked
No
like,
parking.
in the entrance, in the roadway.
In the back and then over there, but I mean, they really shouldn't be parking on the grass, like,
So should we say authorized spaces or areas?
yeah,
I only bring that up because I know with field trips, they do have the parents park on the grass by the tennis courts.
and if that's okay, like, if it's approved, right? I think that's a good
Right.
point,
Yeah,
but, I mean, I saw people parking down here, like, over like where the hill is, like, it was just,
so do we need to add something to our building
we
use?
might have to. That's a good point from all this. There's a couple other suggestions we have for building use forms, like, it's off topic a little bit, but, adding who is the chaperone, who's the supervisor on duty, because like, that's an important thing, knowing who's in charge, right? Like what school official's in charge, or who's the person in charge of making sure all the emergency stuff is done.
Yeah.
That's something we don't really have right now,
Okay,
and it could cause other issues.
okay. I just got word back, everything was good with,
Whatever Jen has add 13, 14, just so you know, that's NISBA. That's the new parts of NISBA
Oh.
that she said they had, so she just marked it off as saying that NISBA's new updated code of conduct has these in here.
student responsibilities, okay. I'm just getting through all of my things. And then there's a quick one where RG fixed.
I'm gonna spell wrong.
Take that. Oops, an extra S there. I think some of my finer places, yeah, hopefully Jess can just clean up typos too. So we don't get weighed down by it.
She has all next week. We can go through this, so we have time.
All right, you see the green? I'm not sure what the green tells school officials about any concerns or complaints in a respectful and timely manner. Is that supposed to be like a numbered one under 9 and before 10?
I don't know.
Kind of jumps
Yeah.
out there, huh?
I think it's probably supposed to be 10.
Continue. That,
Yeah,
number 9,
I think that's
second sentence.
both public teachers are.
Maybe when one of us was trying to edit the formatting.
Yeah, that probably should be 10.
And then since we already have a 10, Jess will see that she has to.
Oh, she might not.
Yeah, should we highlight that maybe?
Want me
I'm just
to
gonna
try?
highlight those two things.
Let me try and fix it.
Okay.
There we
Oh,
go.
there you go.
There you go. Nice.
I think that's probably what, that might have been me, by the way.
Could have been me.
Maybe not good with this.
All right.
You're the master of enumeration.
I spend way too much time in documents.
I can see that.
All right. Finally down to another comment. I just replaced children with students in D4.
Hmm.
Everyone's okay with that, I assume? Okay.
That's good.
next thing I see is the yellow number 9.
Yeah, so that again is more NISBA.
It just got added from the NISBA.
Yeah, but I want to make sure everybody, like, the restorative practice is really where things are moving towards.
Yeah,
Good with
that
that.
seems fine with me. You okay with that, Tim?
Yep.
Okay. You're gonna unhighlight it?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
different.
thanks.
Yeah, it's teamwork.
Okay, Dignity Act Coordinator.
That,
Do,
I'm sorry, which one is that?
now I'm down to F, which
Thank
is
you.
labeled the Dignity Act Coordinator, and it only is parts.
That is now the,
Because, yeah, we're gonna talk about this in 0115.
so it was the bullying prevention coordinator in our old policy.
Okay,
So now they've changed it to so that's what the law, like, they've changed it to. So previously it was bullying prevention coordinator. Now it's just dignity act coordinator. So they changed a couple names and changed a few things. Really the same stuff,
okay.
just change it. But we have two acronyms, the DAC and the DAC. So
Yes.
it's weird.
That
Yeah.
got a little tricky in
What's the other
0115.
deck?
District Advisory Committee.
So we're gonna have to rename something, or not use acronyms.
I would say we just call them the dignity act coordinator because you don't use that one often.
Okay,
It's not one that, people don't say go to the DAC. They usually say the since it will shut down.
oh,
Just thinking that no one's
There's no
recording
meeting.
anymore, so I have to go back to it quick and I didn't get to it quick enough, so that's what happened. So, sorry about that.
all right, well, we're all
We're
set?
back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay,
All right.
And Shauna will actually meld them together. She does a good job of connecting them and it's like that.
Now on to our sponsor.
So number 9, you guys see that? It's like a little orange. And then number 10, yellow. Are those both added by Jen because of,
I'm sorry, what page are we on?
we're right above the student dress code.
Jen Jobs had a couple
13,
of comments. Those almost look like they're both from her. Maybe they were intended to be two different.
It's NISBA.
Is when she was adding all the
Yeah.
rest of the information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. So NISBA's added a lot of restorative practices to it. And at the most recent New York State Safety Conference, they said that they did. And that was a conversation that boards had to have, like, regarding it, that they've added that into it as a shift to it.
Everyone's good with that?
Good.
Okay. The dress code, number 1, I recommended getting rid of appropriate, because what does that mean? Number 1. You know how other people feel?
Yeah, I don't know that it. I think
Doesn't
that's
add
what
much
we're
value.
doing is defining what's appropriate.
Right.
So, yeah.
Are you okay, Tim, if you take out the word appropriate?
I guess, I think it's a legitimate concern. I think it's a legitimate standard to have, but appropriate's a very
Subjective.
subjective
Yeah.
term. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it
You're not-
doesn't help in terms of interpreting what
This is saying.
what this
Right,
means.
okay. I'm gonna accept it.
It could be
then.
a point of discussion, though. If I was an administrator and say, what you're wearing is not appropriate. Well, define appropriate, and we could have a discussion about it.
Right, but I
Well,
would,
I think that's
I
what
think,
number
yeah.
1 through 7 does.
yeah,
Okay,
I think
all right.
that's the way this was drafted when we rewrote it. Last year, was it, or the year before? Was
Yeah.
trying to define what's
Right.
appropriate.
The underwear comment
Yeah.
is one that
We'll
I
come
did
back.
speak to the high school principal on. And, frost traps, any of that stuff, that no one cares about that, right? Or if you can see somebody's thing, she literally said, she goes, but what about if I have somebody wearing a bra only? And that's all they have on.
What do we do with track girls wearing bras only?
Well, so this is where I got into it. This is what I couldn't understand. And that's why I said they might have to add to it. Because if they're wearing a sports bra, then that's appropriate, right? And I said, well, what if it's a bralette? Because I've seen that before. Well, that's different than a bra. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I was having a hard time understanding it. So like a straight up bra, that's why I wanted an administrator here to have the conversation, because I can't speak on how they're gonna, what that means. And again, I also think from a male standpoint, I shouldn't be having that comment because I don't understand it as well as a female. So two completely different perspectives. So that's why she was saying, well, if it's a straight up bra, I'm gonna ask them to cover it up.
I don't
That's
know
a
how
difference.
you define what a straight up bra is, to be
Right.
honest.
no shirt over, like, I mean, it kind of comes with 3, right? Because
Right.
3
3 covers that.
include a shirt.
Right,
So,
Right,
I think
so if you only had on a bra, I think you'd violate 3 because
But-
you wouldn't.
But now-
I'm gonna be devil's
Sure.
advocate
you're
here.
violating 3 already with.
So
our-
what is a very short tank top?
Where do we say that?
I'm just saying, a short tank top, could that be a shirt? Like, a lot of this comes down to,
Well, I mean, I see girls, haven't seen a boy yet, but girls all the time with stomachs
Oh, it's
exposed. I saw one today when I was picking up my son.
that's, I mean, walk the mall. I mean,
Yeah, no, I
but the
mean, it's-
mannequins, that's all there is. If you look at the mannequins in the mall,
Why
that's
is
what
it
they're
a
selling.
problem though?
No, I'm not saying it is a problem.
No.
I'm saying, is it consistent with 3?
No,
Fabric in the front, fabric in the back. Yes, there is fabric in the front
it
or
doesn't
the
say how
back,
far down it has to
but
go.
it doesn't, yeah, and we debated that
Yes,
last
I
time
remember.
around in terms of,
Right. And I think this comes from in the past, the idea was getting people ready for business, right? Going out to the business world. Would you be wearing, if you're going, again, things have changed because now you work from home and everything does, but in the past, when code of conducts came, the idea of dress codes were, what does business casual look like? What do you want somebody to go to a job interview in? And I think that was the perspective 20 years ago
right,
when people were doing codes of conducts. It's shifting now. And I think that's the conversation. I know that, they don't really enforce much with dress code. I don't think people would say we don't really have a dress code, which that's okay.
That's their opinion.
But they would say we don't have one in the sense that, we let a lot of things, like there's a lot of flexibility in what we allow kids to wear, which isn't a bad thing. I think it depends on, but I do think some teachers don't feel that way. I think some people still have,
Opinions.
opinions of that, but, it's also the underwear component though is what flexibility does an administrator have then, right? If you limit it, but I think the shirt thing is there, so that helps when they want to address a situation.
so if we didn't have underwear, we don't say anything about what has to be on the bottom. So if a boy were to show.
It does say and
Oh,
pants.
and
Yeah, number
pants.
3.
Okay,
It does cover the bottom.
okay, got it, never mind.
But let's say sagging of pants came back.
I
Right?
still see it,
You're right.
Yeah.
You're not gonna tell them to pull up the pants, right?
you're not?
I never did, to be very honest with you. I just made
It's
sure
just
that,
a form of expression. I don't see,
no, I never
I
did.
mean,
Like,
these kids,
it's-
they don't have many ways to express themselves.
I kind of was under the impression that like, look, as long as nothing's exposed and you're sitting and you're learning in the classroom, I really don't care what you wear.
Exactly.
Okay.
Different opinions, right? That's why we have the conversations. So, underwear, keep or leave?
I won't leave because otherwise,
I would,
what's the sense of having something we're in a policy that we're not doing?
wait, you said leave?
No, I'm saying remove.
Oh, remove.
I
Okay.
leave it deleted, remove it, yeah. It's just, I find it hypocritical to have something in a policy and then say, well, we're not gonna enforce that, but we wanna leave it in there. It's like, it kind of sets you up to be very
I'm
subjective.
trying to like play out in my head the different scenarios where, like, what did you hear from the administration on underwear? Like, because I think we've got it covered.
Yeah, it
Even if we
really
take
was,
it out?
it was the principal, a high school principal, brought up the fact of a student wearing a very skimpy, like basically a line across here. And they asked him to just put a shirt on so that was mostly, covered. That was the extent of.
So like
the
a tube, someone had on like
It
a
wasn't
tube
even,
top?
I wouldn't even call it a tube top, the way that she explained it to me. It really was extremely brief, is what she explained.
Yeah, so I think that would violate 3.
That's kind of
If
where she
that's
went with that.
all they had,
Right,
this person had on.
yeah, she said it was more like a bathing suit top.
I think it can come out, because I think we cover it in 3.
I agree.
I'll hold my nose and swallow hard and say,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
Understood.
it's counterintuitive, but I think the way we have this written, we've covered it.
Okay,
Lower expectations.
I don't agree with that, but I
I know
understand
you
we have
don't.
different opinions. All right,
Okay.
we have a yellow
moving on.
section for Jen, that Jen added because of NISBA, I should say.
So this is actually one that, I added.
Oh,
I don't think Jen's on this one. We talked about it, the principals, on the other day. Mindset has to change a little bit with people when you're talking about restorative practices. An individual who repeatedly fails to comply with the dress code shall be subject to further discipline up to including out-of-school suspension. That really, that kind of is a hard pill. You're gonna do that. So if after restorative principles have been implemented and the student continues to refuse to cooperate, like, we should show restorative practice into this. And it's gotta be on the part of the district as well. So that's why we kind of wanted to have that in there.
But restorative justice suggests to me that there has been a conflict and that we are now resolving this among warring parties. Whereas this, a dress code violation, does not suggest to me that there's a restorative practice that surrounds that issue.
So I see your point, but let me give you the example that I think I would use.
Yeah, I got one too.
So let's say a student is expressing themselves through their dress, right?
Okay,
And the dress maybe violates the code of conduct.
so something on the shirt.
Oh, yeah, so they have a conversation regarding
Okay,
that, and
all right.
the student can voice their opinion and their concern, and they felt heard. The administration or teacher, because it could be a teacher who feels that it's upsetting, then they feel heard, and then they come to a compromise or, and have an understanding of what the discipline or what the solution is.
Why does this offend you? Let me
Right,
tell
those
you
are,
why it offends me.
that's part of restorative practice.
All right.
To be able to have a conversation, instead of it going, no, you're wrong, that's the way we used to do discipline, and people don't have voice, giving restorative practice is really giving voice to people as well. RG, is that kind of
Yeah,
similar?
I was gonna use a similar example. I think.
That's the, and as an administrator who's utilized restorative practices before, it does change behavior. It takes a while, but it does have a positive impact on student behavior and student performance.
I think it just makes students feel respected a little too,
Hmm.
you know? It could, if it's done right.
Well, in life, there's a lot of restorative practices that are
Yeah.
already there as an adult, right?
Mhm.
We're all given the ability as adults to have a lot of conversations and talk.
Right.
It's not discipline without conversation usually. So,
So this paragraph is making my eyes hurt because I think we've got like different font sizes or fonts or space, character spacing.
Yeah.
So if Jess can
Jess is gonna
clean
have
that
to
up
dig
when
right in.
she
I'll add
goes
his
through
and
this.
fonts.
Just makes me like jumpy.
Yeah, like even the line spacing, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I think now we're going down to section prohibited student conduct. If we get down to D, there's number 4.
Yeah, so I can explain that one. The parent made, well, why is it just a weapon is considered violent? This comes from Bader, right? This comes from the state definition of violence. So that's why this is in here. So that's why threatening to use any weapon, that's why conduct is considered violent. If they're using threats, that's harassment and other issues. So that's why it kind of just falls into different categories. But that's really the difference.
Everybody's good.
And threats, again, that comes down to suspensions, right? A verbal threat is much different than a threat with a weapon. People may want a long-term suspension of a year for a verbal threat when, threat with a weapon is much different, right? So, and that's where restorative practices come in, and counseling and supports. It's just different mindsets.
Okay, going down to number 12. I think.
So
Oh,
I'm sorry, just on D4, are we
D4.
saying it's not like I don't have the weapon, it's I have a weapon and I threaten to use it? Or is
Yeah, good question.
I think it's both.
it both?
Let me go back to that, make sure that I'm talking about it.
I'm gonna go get a weapon.
Right, I'm gonna bring in a weapon and
Right.
utilize it.
Right,
you know, that's a threat of a weapon.
well,
Well, you could also,
there's-
right,
But then we have to, but
there's
that's where the,
different,
but
like,
that's where a threat assessment comes in, right? That's why, you know, the threat assessment team, they developed it. Then they have to go, does the student actually have access to a weapon? You know, is this something they're saying that's not true? Is, you know, would they get it? You know, then they have to look into those, that's a prohibited conduct, but then what we do with that prohibited conduct is important. How then is it evaluated? How is it utilized?
yeah, I mean, there's a big difference in the penal law in terms of how those two types of activities are treated.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're in this section in defining prohibited behaviors,
Mhm.
so it's fine.
I'm cruising down to number 12, that's in orange.
13 is missing, just so.
Yeah. Well, she said replace number 12,
Yeah.
so maybe she combined 13, I'm not sure, but I
Our
don't know.
enumeration goddess will take care of that one, I'm
Yes.
sure.
There you go.
There it is.
Or
We're good with that.
There it is.
You're welcome.
Okay, is everyone good to keep scrolling?
Yeah, she added cannabis, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, I'm accepting all of
Yep.
these minor ones.
So this is what I was talking about NISBA. Adding the restorative practices. This is all new.
And this was NISBA's suggestion?
And remember I just said about like, I didn't use the word teachable moment, but that's kind of where that's where we're going.
This is the restorative justice
Yeah.
playbook right here.
Yep, exactly.
Are we under disciplinary penalties
Mhm.
now?
Yeah, all the yellow.
Yeah, so I think this section, at least in the version I looked at before, repeated twice. And we have the heading procedures and referrals, which I think needs to move down
Oh, look at that.
somewhere into the text. Right, because really, like, before we get to procedures and referrals, I think we're introducing the concept of restorative practices.
Yeah, I see what you mean. The historically thing is right under A as well.
So you're saying what we're seeing in yellow under procedures and referrals is repeated
It
elsewhere?
is under A, under penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
So which one do you want to get rid of?
well, I think,
Well, first off, do you want to keep the yellow? I think that's the question to the board is, are you comfortable with moving the district into a more restorative practice kind of situation?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know we've been moving there already, but I think,
what about you, Tim?
I'm fine.
so I think where you can move the procedures and referrals heading would be after the paragraph that starts while there may be and before the board directs.
Okay.
I think that would work.
I'm not, is someone
You
want,
want to just cut and paste it?
I can do it.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We still have some repetitive piece.
Yeah, we'll fix
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we'll clean that up.
You're dropping all sorts of stuff over here, Frank.
oh,
You got Band-Aids, you got notes.
Sucks my finger open.
I see that.
All I had was instructions. Yeah, rainbows and unicorns. That's what I could find this morning.
So, do you want me to keep going? 'Cause
Yes,
I think
please.
we can get rid of all the yellow highlighting,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
In the,
You see the
Before
bounce house
before
down at the
it.
elementary school?
Thank you,
Huge
Archie.
bounce house.
gosh.
That's awesome.
Might be kids' club, probably.
Okay, and then this paragraph. Agreed. Oh, wait,
I think it's,
hang on, I screwed that up. Just hit the check mark?
Yeah, I'll hit it, two items.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, so now we're under procedures and referrals where we have the board directs staff and administration to utilize restorative justice practices where appropriate.
You still have the model up above and it's repeated down below.
Yeah, we can, I was just going in order, but yes, we'll delete it below, I think, right?
Oh, okay.
Is everybody good with the rest of the highlighted text under procedures and
yeah, I think
referrals?
so. Okay.
For penalties, are you fine with changing it to consequences?
Sure, sure.
I get to then change. Oh, thank you, Trish.
Okay,
I was about to
I
do
saw you
it.
too, I'm like, wait, who's doing that? All right, now we'll get to our doubles, right?
Yeah.
So do we get rid of all of the yellow? Is all of it?
think so.
I think so too.
Yeah, it is. From historically, which is the first paragraph,
The whole yellow section, yeah.
it's all been said before.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I think we've got,
Oh, there's
there's
something about opting
Yeah.
out, that last yellow.
Yep.
Let's see.
yep, should a parent or guardian opt out of participating?
Is that different from the
That, I
top?
don't know if that has to move up. That should move up, that paragraph, and then I think this section should start with students who are found to have violated.
Mhm.
That's consequences.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
Same,
all right, here, I'll do it.
thank you.
All right, there's more that I didn't move up.
And then all that yellow under consequences, that could go,
Yeah,
that could go all the way down to that students who are found.
so the only thing is, we're missing the list of what the,
No, it's above, oh, I see what you're saying, the list of,
yeah, so it says, the list below will be utilized to determine consequences.
should change the headings. No, it's up above.
I'm not understanding. Under consequences, isn't there a list? Yeah. 1 through 13.
Oh, okay, the
Yeah.
list, oh, all right.
Okay,
I was thinking it would follow immediately, but this works.
okay.
Okay.
So parent guardian or student level is 18. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Get rid of the highlight. Okay.
Number 11, 12, and 13, Trish, what was your question?
Oh, it used to, let me see. The way it was written before, it said the Board of Education would, the list of who was going to, hold on, let me see. somewhere,
Short-term
it's the
lunch.
list of who is gonna deal with
Well, it
it.
says Board of Education. Oh, there it is.
Where is it?
Yeah, I
It's
think
under
it's,
11.
I think it's for
Well-
appeal purposes.
yeah, I think it's because they have
Oh,
the right
right.
to appeal to the board.
Yeah. So, and technically, if the board wants to overturn the suspension, they truly could through an appeal.
Right,
So that's what I think that's for.
Okay.
I think so too.
No.
And honestly, a long-term suspension, a superintendent, actually, a principal cannot give a long-term suspension. They can recommend it for number 12, but,
So do you wanna take principal out?
because you need a superintendent hearing in order for,
More than 5 days suspension.
yeah, more than 5 days suspension. I can't,
So,
principals can give 5 days, but no, you can't give more than 5 days without a hearing. Like that's,
Take them out of long-term.
yeah, so they can't give a 6-day suspension. You just can't do it. And I could only give a long-term suspension only based on the result of a hearing.
But according to law, the Board of Education can suspend.
Boards do have the right to jump in. It doesn't happen often, and you can imagine, and when it does, it really does.
Never heard of it.
I know, I didn't feel comfortable.
There was a
having that in there,
situation
but-
where there was an appeal to the board for a suspension before that I was a part of.
I could see an appeal too, but it's almost, so it has to pass through
Correct.
the superintendent before it gets to the board.
For sure.
Okay.
The appeals will go there.
We do not want to get in that business.
No.
Um,
Alright, I'm down to what comment I have that's in orange. Is everyone okay if we scroll right down to there, or we still have
Yep.
things to think? Okay. I was just thinking about this form, and I don't know if I've seen it, I might have printed it out, but I didn't know if there was a space for the student to have info on the form.
So with the ability of restorative practices and that within it, they have to, right?
They
So
have
that's part of it. If you're saying we're moving to restorative practices, a student can't be removed from a classroom without input. And then,
Okay.
yeah, so, and honestly, when they're saying removal, that's, there's legislation that goes along with it. It's where a teacher says, I can't have you in my classroom anymore. So there's like legislation and legal aspects that have to happen. It just can't be done like that. There's rules that we have to follow for those to occur.
So in this section, do we want to add the student, or we just know that that's part of our process, or?
Well, as part of the investigation and the restorative practices are already within it.
Okay,
This is really just saying,
the teacher has to
you
fill
gotta
out a
complete the
form.
form.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
I just want to make sure the students had a voice.
so
but-
years ago, what was happening is teachers would kick kids out of classrooms and say, you can't come to my classroom for 5 days,
Mhm.
right? You can't be here. And there was no oversight in that, right? So people were making these arbitrary decisions for classroom management
Maybe not
without,
consistently,
right,
right?
exactly. Well, you didn't come prepared, so I don't want you here. So this kind of helps overset this because you can't remove, the only people who can truly remove child from an instructional is the principals, the building administrator. But for safety reasons, teachers have the ability to do through forms, but there's a process that you have to go through.
Is there, I don't know if this is what you're suggesting, Trish, but in that paragraph, the teacher and the student must complete a district established form? Is that what you're getting at?
I didn't know, yeah, kind of, like, do we need to add it or do we not? Well, first I wanted to make sure the student had a voice, which I've learned.
Well,
I don't want to say the student must complete, because the
Okay.
I don't
student can
either.
choose not to.
Right, right.
And we're not going to force them.
I don't either, and I think the
Well, it's
teacher
right
should.
here. The notice must also inform the parent guardian that the student has the right upon request to meet informally with the principal or the principal's designee to discuss the reasons for removal.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was covered.
I gotta be honest with you, often, the times that I've seen like this kind of formal thing happen, actually never have seen something like that occur.
I agree. That's good.
All right, I think we're down to Arju's adding electronic mail, which seems, good.
Yeah,
So-
so,
No?
I
No.
don't think, so every time I've done suspension letters and talked to council before, they don't consider electronic mail to be the 24-hour notice for suspension. So suspension letters you have to have 24-hour notification or 48-hour notification, otherwise it actually can be nullified. So, and then when we've done it before, they said emails do not count. So that's why I would be nervous about the electronic mail.
What if, what if we had a homeless student? Where would we,
We personal deliver it to the family.
or what if we didn't know where they were?
So our homeless students are through McKinney-Vento. So they have transportation, or we always have to know where someone lives, right? So if we can't get a hold of somebody, then that's actually probably better, because then we can work through McKinney-Vento, they get rights, right? So if someone's homeless and they're not notifying us, the minute we find out, they actually get a lot of protection underneath the law, so it's a good thing. I've also had suspensions before where we've done the person delivery, and what we found out happened was the person goes to the house, they knock on the door, they go to take their picture, do the things we have to do, and oh, by the way, they're not here. They talk to the landlord, oh, they moved out 3 months ago. We then find out that, oh, they're living, across the river, and they're driving their child in every day. So then instead of a suspension, we're actually dealing with, a child being removed from the school district because they no longer are within residence. So that's why a lot of times I would be hesitant on the electronic mail component.
Okay. I mean, I guess it could come into play in some other means. Okay, we'll delete it.
Yeah. I also have been a part of legislation, legal issues where the 24-hour, 48-hour notice of a suspension was questioned, and it was the major tipping point of the situation. So it always makes me more nervous.
And we have to add parent/guardians.
Okay, this one.
I can't imagine how that happened, but.
With my
yes.
exhaustive search and replace. Thank you. There's another one too, man.
Yes, we got it.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I think electronic mail is fine for the suspension one, as long as some other means is reasonably calculated to assure receipt within 24 hours of the decision.
Yeah, I could just see a situation where you have a parent who doesn't get the mail, but they respond to email.
Right, or they could say,
Smart.
I never got it, I didn't
Right.
see the email, I didn't open it, it wasn't me who opened it, I never received it.
Right,
Like, there's
yeah.
other issues that come along with
You
it.
could say that with all of them.
You can say-
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's why, so when we deliver letters and they're not there, we take pictures of it. And so we make sure that we show that it was delivered, we timestamp that, like, there's a lot of processes that we do.
What about a
Just to make sure.
text?
I think email's better because you can do a
Well, I
read
agree.
receipt. Like
Yeah,
you
I know.
can
I'm just
get a
saying, is a
notification.
text even a possibility?
Yeah.
Because you could change mail to correspondence,
Electronic correspondence.
electronic correspondence.
That would fall within, text would fall within that, I would think, but.
Yeah, email, text, I mean, I don't know what else.
It's almost one and the same these days.
I think it's in there when it says reasonably calculated to assure receipt of the notice. So that little disclaimer, some other means, could mean anything. It could be
Yeah.
text, it could be, all right,
As a practice,
Some other means,
there's
yes.
nothing to prevent you from doing all of the above.
Yeah.
Right?
All right,
and as
So,
long as you have the specific things that have to be in the letter.
right. But if you want to make sure a kid doesn't come back to school, right? Like, I would think you would email, call, personal delivery.
I've done all that before, and the child is still coming to school.
Right, so, you know what I'm saying, like, belt and suspenders.
should have told me.
Okay. I think now we're down to the next comment that we kind of discussed. In C, at least one calendar year.
That's law at the moment.
That was my question, is that the
Yeah.
law? But then you said, Frank, that you've never seen one that long.
Oh, no, I've done it. I've done it once before, but it was a major violation. Like, there was gang activity. It was just a very, very dangerous situation. So that was the only time. But all the other ones I've never done. But there are times that you've done it. I've done 1-year suspension for other issues, other than weapons, but typically weapons, you have to have a lot of reasons why you would do one for a year. And that's where the hearing comes involved and, you know, the evidence that goes with it and the past records and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is, like, you could have a student who has a job at Hannaford as a stalker,
Right.
and they have a box.
Well, that's why we
on
don't have a
them,
zero tolerance policy,
And they.
right? It's not zero tolerance. So that's why they could come in and it could be a 1-day suspension, right? Or it could, you know, depending on the weapon, it's a minimum. Any student found guilty of bringing a weapon to school may be subject to suspension from school for at least 1 calendar year. So maybe, not will be, or not shall.
I think this gives the administration some
I've done that.
possibility that we could make this very serious.
We've had
If
kids
it's
who
a really serious situation.
who went
If it's a
hunting the
kid who
night before
accidentally
and
brought
had
the
a hunting
box
knife in their back.
Right, but maybe for at least 1 calendar year, that leaves it totally open-ended. Can you suspend them for 5 years?
No, it's only 1 calendar year.
So you're limited to 1 year.
As far as I know, I don't think you can expel children.
Right,
I've
you know
never-
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It should be a
So
maximum.
instead of
it
400,
shouldn't be-
it should be no more than.
It's be
Right now it
For
says at least.
A maximum of
maximum,
1
yeah.
calendar year. Right, it's not at least.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that
I always
most?
thought it, so I don't want to sound like I have the wrong information. I've only known it to be 1 year. Like I thought the rules and legislation was always 1 year. I've never confirmed it with the, I've only known it to be.
Well, let's just say up to maximum, no more than, something of
Yeah,
that.
let me,
Mhm.
while we're talking, let me look at education law 32.
Because I know like the legislation that they were just talking about changing, it was 1 calendar year. And then they were saying they were gonna limit that to like 3 months.
But at least, what they're saying is at
Yeah.
least is the floor.
Right, so let's say
It's saying we want it to be the ceiling.
up to.
Right, exactly.
Why don't we say up to? And then you're gonna confirm it for sure. I think it's only 1 calendar year. I don't think there's an at least there. But I don't wanna be wrong.
Yeah, I'm looking at something right now, so we can keep going and I'll research
Really? You can do 2 things at once.
sometimes.
How about this next one?
The next one is the controlled substances question. Is that what you see as the next one? Okay. Knowingly and unlawfully possessing marijuana in violation of penal law section. A single violation will be sufficient basis for a PIN's petition.
So my question on this is probably another legal one.
Okay.
Like, is there language in the law that about marijuana specifically,
Right.
that is PINs mandatory? Or does it include other controlled substances,
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
right? Because that, to me, it seems
Yeah, why have it? just
Like,
be
why-
marijuana?
like, what if a kid brings
Well,
cocaine?
we
to
can
school?
we can
You
always
can't do
file,
PINs?
so we can always file a PINs petition if it's go to deferment or if they actually take it, that's a completely different story. So I'm fine with putting controlled substances because the
Right.
amount of PINs petitions we file here, are limited, but they do happen.
Is
Right.
marijuana considered a controlled substance anymore?
It is, well, there's
Regulated.
a controlled substance under the penal law. It's a different article for marijuana. So technically, no, but it is a prohibited substance for certain people, right? Like, you can't possess,
But we're
Marijuana
referencing
under
a
age
particular penal law section.
Right.
Yeah.
so that section is the possession of marijuana
Yeah, I would
section
think
that's
so.
there. But like, the controlled substances section is Article 220, like those, so it's not the 221. It's 220, it starts at 220.
Hmm.
Well, see what we're saying in this sentence, if you take it very literally, knowing and unlawfully possessing marijuana, or something's been taken out, in violation of penal law section 21 or 22(1.05.
Mhm.
Do we even have to go into that, what section of penal law we're talking about? Or can we just say knowingly and unlawfully possessing marijuana or other
Or any
controlled
other controlled
substances?
substance. I think we could, the question
I
I
mean, for our policy
had,
purposes.
that was my question though, was, is this a legal, is it a restatement of the law relating to PIN's petitions?
It is
And I
here.
don't know the answer to that question. As a policy, yeah, I think we could say,
Right.
you know, we're gonna file a PIN's petition if you're bringing cocaine to school.
Which I would.
Right, so I mean, this is a statement of policy, I
Yeah.
would put it in.
Yeah, I'd probably take out the sections of law that are referring to it if it's gonna complicate things. Just say possessing marijuana or other controlled substances.
Yeah.
And probably the rest of that, and stop there.
Will be a
Instead of
sufficient
other-
basis for filing a PINs.
So this is nitpicky, but instead of other, I would just say or any,
Mhm.
because
That's true.
marijuana doesn't fall under the controlled substances article.
Any controlled substance.
Federally, it's controlled substance, but not.
And then get rid of that violation. Get rid of the next sentence.
Will be sufficient. Will be a sufficient basis for filing a PINs petition.
Yeah, that's good. So you already have that kind of stated in the introduction of that list, but it's all right.
All right.
Number 2,
Mhm.
district may file PINs petition in family court on any student age of 18 who demonstrates that they require supervision and treatment by,
So
it's all saying the same thing.
a lot of times PINs petitions after the age of 16 don't really stick as well. All right, yeah, have you seen that before? Those
Say it
PINs
again.
petitions? After the age of 16, typically, you don't really get, PINs petitions usually don't stick. Like it's 14, 15, by the time they're 16, it's like, you know, there's gotta be a major reason that they would take a PIN petition at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's 16, 17.
Yeah.
You get into like YO type stuff if you're charged as an adult,
Yeah.
So just looking at this education law 3214, back to the threatening, to use a weapon. The way this reads, it sounds like there has to be a weapon there. Threatens while on school district property to use any instrument that appears capable of causing physical
So there
injury
has to
or
be a
death.
weapon, not.
That's the way I read this, and this section kind of mirrors like the way we define violence. I think we can leave it the way we have it, but just FYI, I think this is written to
Okay.
address specifically that situation.
Okay. I think the next thing I see is, if I scroll, is for corporal punishment under section 11. There's yellow number 3.
It's yellow. You got it.
I don't know why it's yellow. Originally, I think the yellow were the NISBA ads,
And then it's ads.
but we've had a lot of hands in the pot.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with it.
No.
People are very wary to put their hands on other people, and many people are TCIS trained.
Right.
So,
All right, well, we're to the student search and interrogation section. I just had not necessarily a question, but do we need to state that there needs to be a witness if a student is being searched, or like where's the student rights, you know what I mean?
I would. You're saying if a student's just being, do we need a witness to any
Yeah,
search?
or should we as a
I-
practice?
So administrators who've done searches, you don't need one. Like I've never like,
But are you putting hands on bodies?
no, so
Okay.
that's, so different, no.
Okay.
If you're gonna put hands on bodies for that, then yeah, you definitely,
Okay.
oh my God, yeah, no, it's, so a search is this. I think you have weed in your shoe, take your shoe off.
Okay.
Like that, if I ask a student to take their shoe off, that's considered a search. I've asked them to remove a piece of their clothing. Like, so I know that sounds crazy, like, but that's really what I just did. So that can be searched. Empty your pockets, do those things. If there's gonna be a pat down, then you absolutely want
Okay.
a weapon. I mean, that's practice.
Right, but if a kid's sitting in a classroom and his book bag is on the ground and the teacher
Yeah,
believes there's
like, exactly. Like,
weapon
let's
in there
say,
or something,
let's say there's a crazy smell of marijuana coming from a student's backpack. That's enough for me to be able to search it. I don't need a witness for that.
you might want one.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm
That's a
just saying.
different
Yeah.
issue.
Right.
Right, but you don't need one. But I will tell you, the practice that we utilize for our own process is to always have a witness. And that's not for student protection, that is for the witness of us, what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
But yeah, pat downs and stuff, that's completely, we have different procedures for those things.
Everybody else is okay with that paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Oh, okay, I think the next thing I see is a question I had with visitors to the school section, if people are ready to scroll there. I just wanted to make sure, number 2, we
Yeah.
have some rules about what visitors have to do, and I didn't know if we need to switch our language a little bit now that we have that Raptor
So they
system.
don't need to return it.
So I just thought we might want to make that cleaner.
Do they ever receive it?
They have to.
When I walk in here, what am I considered? Because I
Well,
walk,
they're not doing it yet. So this has been
Oh.
piloted,
okay.
right? So,
So this is Raptor,
right.
you're
So-
thinking of Raptor when this is written?
So sometimes schools become very lax in their approach to visitors because they know who the people are, right?
Right.
So small communities like ours, it becomes very easy, right?
Absolutely.
So training people to say like, no, even though Tim has been here 1,000 times, he's on the board, he still needs to sign in and get a pass. That's a training that has to happen. People need to be used to this. Raptor's gonna help us get that way because at this point, everybody has to come in, everybody gets one, it doesn't matter. And then the person, if somebody misses it, then whoever is oversighting the person really needs to address that, hey, look, everybody should get a pass. Everybody should technically always have a visitor's pass on. Right? There's too many scary stories out there about, somebody says, oh, I'm just here to visit my wife, I have a cup of coffee, they let him in, and then you didn't know there was something crazy going on afterwards. And you hear
You
these,
could walk in as any school anytime, just wait for somebody to open the door.
right, so that's why, everybody should be doing passes, and the Raptors should be having doing that, because next year, everybody who comes in has to sign in, has to get a visitor's pass. And that's board members, construction people, everyone.
So do we need to adjust this, I guess was my question, knowing that?
I think the visitor's badge doesn't need to be handed in, because it's a piece of paper.
What, the Raptor has,
Well,
The Raptor, they should have an expiration date. They should be dated.
it does, but that could act as a sign out though, if somebody leaves, but what if you forget? I've seen it before, I'm trying to think, I've been to the school, I can't remember where or when. They had it where somebody would put their sticker on as they left. I don't know if that's,
I mean, if you got,
no,
if you
there's a
got
date, there's a
100
time, there's a
parents here for
location.
a concert, and
That's what they're
every
looking
one
for.
of them has to sign in.
Yeah.
Do you want them all funneling in and out
Well,
of the
concerts
office?
were, so that's the procedures we're working on, like, if they're having a concert and 100 people are coming in, they're in, they're out, and they monitor it. I don't know if they're gonna have them sign in for those, but if you have 20 people coming in for a guest speaker, you know, it's different. Like, so that,
Right.
those are the procedures they're trying to work through.
Right.
For our purposes, I think at a policy level, this doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just take out the visitor must return the identification badge,
Right.
because we really will not need that at all.
What page are you on, Trish, just so I can jump down
It
there?
is page, not telling me your page number.
You just click like on the side of my, on the scroll bar.
Yeah, so open to the public, that's this concert, right?
Yeah,
So a school concert's open to the public, you don't need to sign in for that.
I don't know. It is like XIII visitors to the school section. Oh, I see, it's page 30.
okay.
I see it over there on the right. Sorry about that.
And then we do have to go back up to the 1 year thing.
Okay.
What'd you find?
So the law says that in our code of, our code of conduct, we have to specify for students who are determined to be violent students or violent pupils, a minimum period of suspension, but that suspension period may be, let me read you the exact language, provided that the suspending authority may reduce such period on a case-by-case basis to be consistent with any other state and federal law. So this says we have to specify a minimum suspension period. So, and I haven't been able to find anywhere that sets a maximum suspension period in the law. I'm
So
sure
that's
it
why it says
exists,
at least 1
but
year.
that's why it says a minimum of 1 year. So I think you'd still retain just
Up to, and
discretion, but the way this is written, it says
Not
Our
if it says
code of
at least 1
conduct
year.
has
For
to
certain
say.
students, that's the floor, right? These violent students you're talking about?
but I thought we changed it to say minimum.
to.
Up to.
We
So
did, but
need-
We did.
Tim is just
But
saying.
what
the
you're
law.
saying, when you're saying that we're supposed to have a minimum.
Right. That's
and
why I
we-
think it was.
That's why it was
the way
written in at
was.
least.
Right.
And now the variable is a year, what we want it to be. And I think we were saying that's too long.
Right. For
Yes,
some-
so
for a lot
now
of
we
cases.
can,
And now we're back to a different discussion.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me find that section.
I think,
But
Here's my
I'm don't know what that number should be now.
so here's what I would suggest is, just leave it up to a 1 year. If you put at least 1 year and that's your minimum, then, or not to exceed 1 year, that's the minimum, right? Is the minimum,
No,
No,
not to
not to
exceed is
exceed,
not.
isn't it?
That's your max.
I would be very nervous to put in a minimum. So you could, because if you're putting in a minimum, then it's 0 tolerance, right?
That's how it was.
I mean, the
Right.
minimum could
And
be,
that's how it
we
was
have
written, so that's my concern.
your minimum could be a day,
Right,
So we have a,
So-
up to a year.
but, so
So we have-
let's be the other end. I'm a parent, I'm reading that, oh my God, this district, a violent student, they're only gonna give them 1 day suspension,
Yeah,
you know, it's,
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this section is minimum periods of suspension, which I think
we
is
did-
written to comport with education law 3214.
but don't we have that when a suspension can be 5 days, a long-term suspension can be more than that? I mean, isn't that your minimums of suspension?
This is for a student found guilty of bringing a weapon onto school property.
Hmm.
Which would be one of the categories that
Mhm.
define someone as a violent student.
I think we're okay with the municipal language of at least, and then just calling it a day.
So we'd have to change it back to for maybe subject to suspension from school for a minimum of 1 year. That's what
Well,
we
it
have.
said at least,
Did it say at
Yeah, it
least?
did say at
So-
least.
at
Yeah,
least, yeah,
so, yeah,
which is an odd way to say it. And
Now we're
that
seeing
means,
why.
huh?
yeah,
And now we're seeing why.
Now we'll see why. And, but I do think that right away says, that's your minimum. You can't go less than a year. If this kid brings a weapon on,
Right.
you're done for a year, kid. That's it. But I like it the way we revised it, and honestly, as a policy for a school district, I think we should have some level of flexibility. I realize what the law says, but give our administrators some discretion here.
So I think
Use the
I think we had it, because we added in, or maybe it was here before, the superintendent has the authority to modify the 1-year suspension on a case-by-case basis. In deciding whether to modify
Well,
the
you got it already
penalty,
then.
the superintendent may consider the following. So I think we're good if
I
we
do.
change it back to, for a minimum of 1 year, or at
At
least
least.
1
At
year.
least a year.
My recommendation always use NISBA at that point, because then if something does come up and it gets challenged, then we can say, well, look, NISBA did it. So-
Well, on advice of counsel.
Right, and advice of counsel, right? So I mean, that's,
Sure.
sometimes you wanna have that safeguard.
All right,
Although
so I think.
they'll quickly say, we didn't give you advice, we gave you information.
Okay, and then there are other places in here where we reference the 1-year suspension, but I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, so I made that change.
Thank you, Angie.
Should I like adding welcoming?
You do?
Yeah.
All right, back to page 30.
Okay.
Under XIV, public conduct on school property.
I mean, well, welcoming is subjective, but I.
It
like
is, but in this section, that's
I
all
mean, welcoming can be
subjective
right
anyway.
and airy and
Respectful,
happy and,
orderly.
yeah, I like it.
I think that area is just kind of setting what our hopes are. It's not
Mhm.
actually, yeah. Okay. Okay, now we're getting down to prohibited conduct. Number 12, we have you can't gamble on school property, which I started thinking about, like raffles.
Oh, it's such a, when I
Like, what is
When I
gambling?
first got to tax and finance, I was going up the elevator and I saw a sign, do this raffle to contribute money to the audit picnic. And I was like, that's illegal. We can't allow this.
50-50.
And I raised it and was promptly shut down and
Right.
told, leave it alone.
Right.
Rule
So,
weenie.
I'm not trying to, I'm just wondering if we're technically outlawing that, the way this is written.
I think what we're saying is gambling on school property, which is illegal and not endorsed by the school district. So like students shooting craps in the bathroom,
right,
right?
yeah.
Literally,
If it's endorsed by the school district,
Yeah,
you're
like-
fine.
If some
If
kid
somebody
set
says
up
you can
his-
do it, 50-50, then we're good.
Like if some kid has set up his cardboard table with 3-card Monte on it,
Yeah.
like, we need to.
Well, what
put
if
a
kids are
stop to
doing
that.
like basketball brackets?
That if there's a house,
Can you say
It's
illegal,
illegal.
can you say illegal gambling?
you can, right?
Illegal
'Cause
gambling
you
on
can have
school
games
property.
of chance, which are not illegal.
Right.
As long as all the money that comes back in goes back out.
No, I was looking at number 12 here, and if you just simply said illegal gambling
I like that.
on school
That would-
property. That's cool.
That would,
Wouldn't that do it?
That would do it,
Okay,
as long as we don't mind kids playing,
craps in the bathroom.
as long as, there's no house, right? As long as
True.
all the kids
It's no
are
different than
putting,
playing cards.
that
Well,
would be okay.
I don't
if we
know
said
what illegal is.
no, I, listen, when I was, I'm gonna incriminate myself on video right now, but I mean, I used to play poker
Statute of
with, I used to play
limitations
pokers with the kids every once in a while, like, no money, but
Yeah.
just, just, kids
Yeah.
like playing
But-
poker, it's a fun game.
Right.
And if you're not betting,
Then it's not.
Then
Well,
it's
this
not-
one, you could have these sports
Exactly,
pools,
yeah.
and that you would say, well, that's,
oh my gosh,
but
They
if you
did.
put illegal betting down, I think people kind of.
they had a bracket, the presidents, remember, like the
Oh,
seventh
yeah.
graders did it, like, so that
Yes.
would be, so,
But
I
they're
like
not
it.
winning anything.
no, they're not winning. I think
It's only
illegal,
if there's money
I think
involved,
illegal.
right, or rights of some
I
sort.
think illegal is the
I think that kind of gets us there.
I know it was nitpicking,
Take
but I
out
was
the
just
word,
like,
We did a
So
small
the
G,
law is.
small G.
For the smoking,
Yeah.
it cannot be on property at all. It's a smoke-free zone.
right.
yeah.
I guess my question is, but is it okay for them to possess it?
So
And I understand how tricky
Kids-
this is, because there's kids and
kids
there's
know.
adults.
right, adult, yes. So an adult can possess tobacco on property because they're a legal age to possess it. So they can possess it. You
What
can have
was
it in
that,
your
age
car.
18?
Yeah, but kids in school, but if we're saying not in school, right? But let's be honest, nobody goes, if a kid is set off a vape sensor and they're in there, and they're 18 years old, and the vape sensor goes off and they have a vape, I'm not getting them for possessing it, I'm getting them for vaping, right?
Okay.
It's a little bit different. And typically, the only time you get somebody for possession is when you catch them in the act of doing it. You know, when it comes to that, unless it's marijuana, right? If it's marijuana or cannabis or concentrated, then the possession comes a little bit different.
Still?
Yeah.
In school,
it's- Yeah, well, you can't possess marijuana
Under
under 21.
21,
Under
yeah,
21.
yeah.
Right, not 18.
Exactly.
And so can people smoke in their cars?
No,
No,
Okay.
oh, I yell at parents all the time for it.
But, so what if we have teachers that smoke? What if they have to go off campus?
They have to go off campus, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
we
no,
had it written the way.
You used to have to report it to the county, and the county used to be able to fine you for it. So that was back in the day, but that was,
Okay.
and this is coming from by the way, I was a smoker, so I will tell you, I remember that. Those are the very specifics.
Jen changed kind of these consequences. I like that. You guys good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Moving right along. Oh, I'm getting near the end.
I know it's getting exciting.
Yes.
I'm saying this has taken us way longer than I
Me too,
anticipated, but I think
but-
it's good.
We spent a lot of time.
No one can accuse us of not giving this a full review.
Well,
It's more
maybe,
complicated than you think, isn't it?
I know,
Yeah.
maybe in future years it will go faster now.
Well, look, you know how many legal issues that can be solved by having a strong code of conduct?
Yeah.
So,
That's a good point.
you know, the first thing that comes in, when you go to a commissioner's review, the first thing they ask for when it comes to discipline is your code of conduct.
Okay, you're making us feel better, Frank.
No, it's true.
Okay, I'm down to section X of the I. I had just gotten rid of the word internet. It seems kind of old, but I don't know if people care.
Agreed.
Okay. Then we have a section that says the board will sponsor an in-service education program for all district staff members. That whole section, I wasn't sure, like, what does that mean? I'm sponsoring something?
Do we have
And
to
how
provide, do we have
often?
to provide like cakes and,
Right.
Well, by you sponsoring it, is it meaning that someone here is doing it?
But why do we even have to say the board? And we say
Yeah,
there'll
I
be a in-service, and how often? We didn't even say, like, are we gonna do it once every 10 years? Annually? Like, what do we do now, Frank, to make sure everyone knows what changed in the code?
So the faculty meetings at the beginning of the year, they go through it.
Okay,
But again, I think this is a little bit more than that. It's professional development on how to effectively implement the code of conduct. So it's not what changing the code, it's how to do it. So like, and that happens a lot of different ways. Can't kick a kid out of class because they don't have a cell phone on them, right? Or they have a cell phone, or they have the pen. Or you can't remove a student because you don't like the way that they're dressed for the day. Like, those come from conversations with staff members and stuff. For sort of practices though, that's a different way of implementing your code of conduct. So that changes mindset, so that comes with, so I think it's a leveled conversation.
if I was looking at this, I don't know why we're
I don't
even
think the
mentioning
board
this.
would sponsor.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say the superintendent will ensure
Yeah,
that all district staff members, you know, are aware of the code of conduct and all the other stuff here.
Yeah.
And I
Or we
think
could
professional
change it. Yeah, we could say all district staff members will participate in an in-service
Something to that effect.
yeah,
education program to ensure.
and I
Just flip it around.
variety of it.
that works for me.
Then it's really up
Yes,
to you to
that's a
figure
good
out how to
idea.
do
Yeah,
it.
figure out how to do it.
Do you wanna,
Sure, I can make
Yeah,
it.
and that can be different from building to building, like what is done in the secondary campus might not be done in the elementary school and vice versa, right? Like, they might not be having the conversation about how to be a good friend on the playground when you're in high school, but in the elementary school, that's the number one discipline.
Those kindergartners and their cannabis.
You joke. Give it time.
I know, I'm well aware.
Okay.
okay.
Oh, we
I
really
can
did spend a lot of time on
see the end of the page. This is exciting. Under review of code of conduct, of course, the Board of Education will review this every year and update it. In conducting the review, the board will consider how effective the code's provisions have been and whether the code has been applied fairly and consistently. I'm like, what?
Is that stuff written in law like this?
I know, like, what? How am I gonna do that?
Can we go back to that section? 'Cause
Even
this
that section that
is
we just
about-
said about the board will sponsor this.
I know.
Yeah, this
Is that a
section
law-
is
is that a
about
legal
the
requirement?
code. This section's about the code, so let me look.
Sounds weird.
Yeah, I know. And they tuck it in right at the end on page
Right.
34. It's like, what? I am tired, yes, but I did notice that.
Is that within board purview and that's why it says that?
Or just looking it up.
I'm looking at the section now that talks about codes of conduct for,
You know, it's written almost as if it comes out of the law like that. I don't get it. I mean, the way it's written, one could easily interpret it as doing exactly what we're doing right now. Because we're sitting here with an administrator, and saying, well, and he might say, you know, we say X,
Yeah,
but X isn't working. We gotta go to something else. So that
I mean, it
that
could, yeah, I
conversation,
guess-
we may be reading this a little too literally.
Well, when it says I'm supposed to be doing something, I get kind of literal.
Well, I think is what we did now, like, how did you do it?
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like? What does it, do you have witnesses when you do your,
Mhm.
I
So-
think that can be considered the review and how effective it is.
Right.
Yeah,
agree.
so it is in the law.
No way.
The Board of Education, blah, 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 shall annually review and update the district's code of conduct if necessary, taking into consideration the effectiveness of code provisions and the fairness and consistency of its administration. Doesn't say how you do that. And I think this type of discussion would
Okay.
clearly meet the
What
requirement.
about the one about sponsoring an in-service?
Can we get rid of sponsor,
Um,
please?
Is that in there?
I
I mean, it almost sounds like that's where it came from. Weird. I don't see that one.
Okay, so there's other language in there about, it talks about developing the code in collaboration with student, teacher, administrator, parent organizations, safety personnel, other school personnel, shall be approved by the Board of Education or other governing body. Each,
If you're creating from scratch, yeah.
Board of Education shall provide copies of a summary of the code to all students at a general assembly, shall make copies available to those
That's pretty
in
specific.
parental relation to students, shall mail a plain language summary of such code to all persons in parental relation to students
How old
before
is
the
this?
beginning of each year, and make it available thereafter upon request. I think we're already doing that,
Yeah.
right?
Having that piece of paper.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
link. Board of Education, Chancellor, or other governing body shall take reasonable steps to ensure community awareness of the code provisions. So there's nothing about an
Sponsoring.
requirement to sponsor or hold an in-service education, but in general terms, we gotta make sure the community is aware of it, and I think that includes school personnel.
It's on our website.
And we talk about it at our open meetings. We have a
You wanna
hearing.
see it? It's wide open. It's a public document.
Yeah, no, I
And they
think we're good.
do, they do assemblies at the beginning of the year for
Yeah.
kids to go over.
Can I change the name till final from draft?
Yeah.
Everyone good?
I can.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oops, I think I spelled it wrong. Got it over. Okay.
And
So
I'll
now,
have Jess go through that.
all right. Whew, wowzer.
Wow, wowzer, congratulations.
I can't believe we have to do that every year.
Well, I don't think it's gonna be that hard. Like, after we did such a deep dive, I'm really hoping it won't be that hard.
Warn me when you're gonna do that.
Oh, yes.
No, actually, I think the fact that we did this as thoroughly as we did, I would hope that future reviews will be streamlined.
I think
Yes,
so. I mean, we've revised this every year. Well, let's see. I joined in 2020. We revised it in 2021, 2022, and again, we'll
That's
do it
good,
this
that's what-
year. So
So,
it's a living document.
that's right.
so these other ones, the 0115s and all those, we already
Yep.
have them. That's the
Mhm.
important thing, is we already have them.
Yep.
It's just, these are updates to it. So it's not like time sensitive, it just, but
Should we jump then just to the annual review ones? That
Sure.
6240 and 6240R, honestly, I think it's just that one small pronoun change and
6240, I agree,
the
yeah.
investments.
Yep, and then
Oh, yeah.
6,700, let me look at that. So, the NISBA one that includes the reg, I thought it was fine. There was, including like the green purchasing stuff. My
Purchasing.
only concern was that I wanted to make sure we got Jim's input, because it does kind of change some of the like lowest bidder
yeah,
requirements, like if we put this in place, it requires sort of like a feasibility analysis first on whether like a green purchasing is an option, right? Like, I think, because we're saying you have to do green purchasing if it's feasible, right? So that would, I think, require Jim to do an analysis, say, okay, we've evaluated green purchasing, it's practicable, feasible, so now we have to go down that route. Or we've analyzed it as required, and now we're gonna go to the lowest bidder. So I'm a little concerned it could slow down procurement.
mhm, I agree.
And I just don't know, because this is all new,
Right.
if this process on the state side is as well developed as it needs to be.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't create more trouble than it's worth.
My thought process in looking at their policy was, I don't know if we have to jump right into it right now.
Okay.
I agree with RG, it's like,
Wait till the state catches up.
sometimes things
That's
happen
my
so
concern.
quickly with the best
Yeah, no, I
intentions,
know,
but there's not
well.
enough backbone behind it. That makes me a little nervous.
Okay,
So when they put it in here as optional, we're saying, let's hold
I
off.
think we're saying stick with our existing 6240.
That's,
Oops, I
well,
mean,
without doing
6,700.
more,
6700, sorry.
6,700.
it makes me uncomfortable without Jim doing more investigation as to whether this would be an impediment
Do we
to
have,
situations where we,
We had a conversation a while ago about it, and he said he had some concerns about what this would look like when practiced.
that was my concern too, is like,
Okay.
are we really ready? Is the state really ready for this?
We didn't go in depth, but that was what he said.
so the sample policy that
The one
NISBA has, yeah, that's very different than what we have now?
It just adds the optional green yard.
Yeah.
Is that the only thing? Is all the, you got the stuff on
The rest of it
piggybacking
is
in there?
Is
Yeah.
literally
Yeah, it's some of,
exactly the
it's,
same.
some of
Alright,
it
okay.
is like set up a little differently, but the substance is
Yeah,
Okay.
the same.
But I think things are gonna come out next year, I
Okay.
think, a lot more on this, so it can be updated at any time.
so I think we're all agreeing that.
Yeah.
We've reviewed, we don't even have to do anything at the board meeting then, if we're just keeping, we can talk to
We can
it,
talk about it,
but
yeah.
just say why we decided to not do this quite yet.
Right.
Speaking of, I will not be at the next board meeting,
Okay,
so I don't know who wants to be the lucky one to shepherd this discussion.
I'll do it.
You don't
It's
mind,
fine.
RG?
Yeah, it's fine, because we don't have an audit, so I'll be there.
Perfect.
I can set up or give you my notes.
I can
Okay.
go off of the agenda, okay, I'll just use that.
All right,
Okay, so we do have just the minor change to 6240,
Yep.
which would be a revision,
yes,
and then 6,700 for now we'll leave alone.
we're not touching, we did our annual review and you can just explain to the board why we decided not to adopt the green language at this point in time. Code of conduct is totally ready, final, ready to go. Yep, public hearing. And then I guess the question for my committee that's been here forever, as it's 4:30.
What about the equal opportunity?
That's what I was
on
just
this?
gonna ask you.
Is that done?
We know, so we have an existing policy 0100 equal opportunity, and we have an existing student harassment and bullying policy 0115.
Yeah.
We had hoped to maybe jump into some changes.
Yep.
but we aren't required to do so before our July meeting. So I'm guessing we should
up
probably
to
call
you.
it a day. We've had quite a long meeting. If everyone's comfortable with that, we can table these two. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
No problem.
And I think,
I mean, I looked at them, I don't think there's anything that we need to change immediately. Right, like, it just, I mean, the 0115, I think, has some new language
Yes.
to address like the Crown Act and some
Exactly.
other things like that,
mhm.
which frankly, I think we kind of cover in our current diversity, equity
Mhm.
policy. So, I mean, even though this one's not updated, I think we've covered those things in other places. Not to say that we shouldn't update
Right.
this when we get to it,
But
but I
at least
think,
we've got ourselves covered.
yeah, I think we need to. Okay.
Well, I only asked a question about DASSA reporting because it caught our attention in the press this week.
I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, it's in the Times Union, where they were saying that the number of reports from violations, perceived violations of Dignity for All Students Act had dropped dramatically. And they focused it on Corinth School District. The Washington, Saratoga, BOCES was involved in this article. Basically what they're saying is, when this came out 6, 7 years ago, whatever the heck it was, there was a lot of talk about what are we going to report, and there was a lot of reporting.
Mhm.
Since then, reporting has dramatically decreased to the point where some school districts schools report none.
Mhm.
And that's raised some suspicions of how legitimate is this. In defense, the administrators will say, number one, we handled it. It's done. So it's not anything that we want to continue discussing. Number two, you, the state, you want this information. To what end, we're not sure, because you never do anything with it. Bad as a dangerous school, because we've reported it, but the guy down the road doesn't report a thing. And they're purported to be the safety, the sanctuary school over here. And we're sitting over here looking like we're violent. So I think the law itself has got all kinds of problems. But this article was kind of defending the Times Union, this is, was kind of suggesting that school districts have been remiss in not properly and fully reporting all of these violations.
So before you even say something, I think, so is that the Veda report, now the school climate survey, not DASSA? Because DASSA.
No,
have to report
DASSA, this was
harassment.
all about DASSA.
So go ahead, RG, then I want to show something.
I was gonna say, when these new programs roll out, right? There's a lot of news around it, there's a lot of, usually for new programs like this, threatening language that comes from the state agency that is
Correct.
responsible for administering about you must.
Right.
But as time goes on, there's clarifications about what must actually be reported, right? So it doesn't surprise me at all
Right.
that you would have this flurry of activity and reporting early on, but then it drops off as there's clarification and guidance around what is actually reportable or,
Right.
should be reported. So I'm not necessarily troubled. I don't doubt that there's districts that don't report anything, and there's probably districts that over-report.
When Vader came out, elementary schools were on the violent and disruptive list because they were reporting every little issue.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think this article and the reader could easily confuse violations of DASSA and Vader and thinking they're one and the same. I know I did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like there's probably no there.
So
I
agree.
So there's another thing I just want to show real quick. I'm not going to go in depth in some of these because these are some of our legal actions, our items that we use as templates for DASSA, but we did a lot of work on DASSA this year, the administrators. And on our website, we're going to be adding the new combined report to it. And the rights and responsibilities will also be on our website. So this right and responsibilities is for everybody. And that's for dignity for all. So this will be posted up on our website in our page for DASA. But I just wanted to share like the report that's here, and then we have findings, right? There's finding templates for the aggressor, for acknowledgement of the complaint, and back to the person who complained. And a lot of times after you do the investigation, our findings means that maybe it's unfounded, right? So those unfounded aren't reportable. And a lot of times, so you might have 20 reports of DASA, but maybe only one founded.
It's
And that
exactly
happens a
what
lot.
the administrators this article were saying is, look, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and we got this covered. And it may be that it didn't rise to the occasion.
But schools take, I know that we've really done a lot of work on this, or we take a very leveled approach to addressing this.
Well, I only brought up the thing is should we have in this policy some indication that if it's reportable, that it will be reported?
Yep, so this right here will be the number one thing that you're gonna have on that. Because that is, it will actually say any complaint made related to that will be investigated by the district. So these rights and responsibilities, I think we can add and embed right into that policy.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay, so just so everyone, this is obviously our last meeting of this committee, depending on who's assigned to what.
Fingers crossed.
Unless we.
But just so everyone knows, we have our running list of
Yes.
items, so whoever is fortunate enough to be on policy, we already have a place.
Oh, I already got a nomination in mind.
Does anyone want to add anything to our last meeting or?
No. Thank you, Trish. You've done an awesome
You
job.
have been phenomenal, Trish,
Thank you.
as our
All of you.
in-house counsel over
Yeah.
here. I
Everyone's working
appreciate
really
all
hard.
of you, both of you have done. That's fantastic.
I appreciate all the work you've all done outside of these meetings to hopefully make it go faster, although it didn't feel like. it
No,
went
this has
fast
been really
today.
meaningful. I honestly, I have learned so much by going through this process of the way things actually operate at a school and trials and tribulations. It's been
Mhm.
awesome.
I suggested to Rachel that she keep this together, but
Well, unless,
We
I mean,
shall
I would
see.
want to take an opportunity from someone that's interested in learning more in policy, but we'll see how it all.
Yep.
I'll support your candidacy if it comes forward.
I'll take whatever assignments I'm given. Okay, well,
Alright.
thank you. That concludes our meeting then.
And thank you, Frank.
Yes,
You've been
thank you.
extremely helpful throughout this
Appreciate it.
process.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.